In the history of rock music, only a handful of bands have survived the death of their lead singer. But the list is short for a reason. You can replace a guitarist, swap out a drummer, even bring in a new bassist. But when the voice dies, the band's identity usually dies with it. So when Linkin Park announced Emily Armstrong as their new vocalist 7 years after Chester Bennington's death, the internet didn't just react, it erupted. But here's the thing, the backlash wasn't really about her voice or her talent. It was about something much darker. Something that goes directly against everything Linkin Park has ever stood for. Emily Armstrong has deep ties to Scientology. And if you know anything about Chester Bennington's legacy, you know why that's a problem. Chester Bennington wasn't just a singer. He was a lifeline for millions of people struggling with depression, addiction, and trauma. His lyrics about mental health were raw, honest, and unapologetic. Songs like Crawling, Breaking the Habit, and One More Light weren't just music. They were survival guides for kids who felt like they were drowning. Chester talked openly about his childhood abuse, his battles with substance dependency, and the darkness he carried every single day. He didn't hide behind metaphors or vague poetry. He named his demons. He described the feeling of being trapped inside your own mind, of wanting to escape your own skin. For an entire generation of kids who felt broken, Chester's voice told them they weren't alone. More importantly, it told them it was okay to ask for help. Now, Linkin Park's music became the soundtrack for anyone who didn't fit in. For teenagers sitting in their rooms feeling like outsiders. For young adults trying to process trauma they didn't have words for yet. Chester gave them those words. He gave them permission to feel angry, to feel hurt, to feel lost, and to believe they could still find their way back. And then, in July 2017, he was gone. Linkin Park went silent. For years, the band seemed finished. Mike Shinoda released some solo material processing his grief. But the idea of Linkin Park continuing without Chester felt impossible. Until September 2024, when they announced Emily Armstrong would be stepping in as co-vocalist. Most people had never heard of her. If you followed the hard rock scene, you might have known her as the front woman of Dead Sara. But beyond that niche audience, she was virtually unknown. And then people started digging into her background. That's when things got complicated. In 2022, Emily Armstrong attended a preliminary court hearing for Danny Masterson. You might remember Masterson from That 70s Show. What you definitely remember is that he was convicted of multiple counts of violent assault in 2023. His crimes were horrific, and the fact that the new singer of Linkin Park showed up to support him didn't sit well with anyone. Emily eventually released a statement. She said she was asked to support someone she considered a friend, attended one early hearing as an observer, then realized she shouldn't have and cut contact. She said she misjudged it. Fair enough, people make mistakes, right? Except that wasn't the full story. The person who asked Emily to support Danny Masterson almost certainly came from inside the Church of Scientology. Because Danny Masterson was raised in Scientology, and so was Emily Armstrong. Scientology markets itself as a religion focused on spiritual advancement. They compare themselves to Buddhism and Hinduism, claiming they help people improve as spiritual beings. Their leader, David Miscavige, insists it's just like any other faith, but it's not. Unlike traditional religions, Scientology operates on a pay-to-progress model. The organizational structure is incredibly complex, with different levels of knowledge and status that members pay to access. It starts with basic courses that might cost a few $100s, but as you climb higher, the prices skyrocket. Advanced auditing sessions can cost thousands of dollars per hour. Want to reach the highest levels? You're looking at hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars over years or decades. The church presents this as a path to enlightenment, but critics call it what it really is: a business model designed to extract maximum wealth from members while keeping them dependent on the organization. By the time you reach the upper echelons and sit anywhere near David Miscavige or Tom Cruise, you've invested not just money, but your entire identity into the system. Walking away means admitting you wasted years of your life and potentially your life savings. And here's the part that matters most for this story. Scientology is vehemently opposed to psychiatry and psychotherapy. They don't just discourage it, they actively campaign against it. They call psychiatry a tool of control, a way to disempower people. Scientologists are taught that psychology is arrogant, that it tells you what your problems are instead of letting you discover them yourself. For a church that claims to help people, they sure spend a lot of energy attacking the very field designed to treat mental illness. Now think about Linkin Park. Think about what that band represented. Chester Bennington built his entire career on destigmatizing mental health. He talked about therapy. He talked about medication. He talked about getting help. The contradiction couldn't be sharper. How does a band whose legacy is built on mental health advocacy end up fronted by someone tied to an organization that opposes psychiatric treatment? That's the question that's been eating at fans since the announcement. And the answer is more complicated than it seems. Emily Armstrong didn't choose Scientology. She was born into it. Her mother, Gail Armstrong, worked directly for David Miscavige and Scientology's elite group called the Sea Org. These aren't casual members. These are the people at the very top of the organizational ladder. And according to multiple reports, Gail spent years in something called The Hole. The Hole is Scientology's worst-kept secret. It's an internal disciplinary facility where members who violate church policies are sent for punishment. Former high-ranking Scientologist Mike Rinder, who was imprisoned there himself, confirmed that Gail Armstrong was confined in the hole alongside him. We're not talking about a metaphorical timeout. We're talking about a real place where real people are held against their will. So Emily grew up with a mother who was deeply embedded in the system. She didn't make a conscious choice to join Scientology as an adult. She was indoctrinated from birth. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Leaving Scientology isn't like leaving a church. It's like escaping a hostage situation. The organization is notorious for harassing anyone who publicly speaks out against them. Ask Leah Remini, who was born into Scientology, spent decades inside, then produced a documentary exposing what really happens behind closed doors. Ever since, she's been followed, harassed, and threatened by church members. Scientology doesn't just let people leave quietly. They actively work to destroy anyone who brings them bad press. And then there's the policy of disconnection. If you leave Scientology, especially if you do it publicly, the church can force your family members who are still inside to cut off all contact with you, permanently. Imagine being Emily Armstrong. Your mother is high up in the Sea Org. If you publicly denounce Scientology, you might never speak to her again. So when fans demand that Emily make a statement, when they want her to publicly reject Scientology, they're asking her to potentially sacrifice her relationship with her mother. They're asking her to invite harassment and retaliation from one of the most litigious organizations on the planet. They're asking her to risk being followed, threatened, and legally attacked for years to come. That's not a small ask. That's asking someone to blow up their entire life. The church has a documented history of targeting former members who speak out. They file frivolous lawsuits designed to drain resources and time. They send private investigators to follow ex-members. They contact employers, landlords, and family members with the goal of isolating and discrediting anyone who challenges them. This isn't speculation. This is documented behavior that's been reported by countless former members and investigated by journalists for decades. For someone in Emily's position, born into the organization with family still inside, the cost of leaving publicly could be devastating. She's not just leaving a church. She's potentially leaving behind everyone and everything she's ever known. But here's the thing. There's evidence suggesting Emily isn't on board with Scientology at all. In 2018, she released a track with Dead Sara that contains some very specific references. She sings about sweating off chemicals in a bubble bath. That's not just random imagery, that's a direct reference to Scientology's Purification Rundown, a controversial detox program that has literally led to deaths. The Purification Rundown involves extended sauna sessions, massive doses of vitamins, and a specific regimen that's supposed to cleanse the body of toxins and past drug use. The church claims it opens the way to spiritual progress, but medical professionals have raised serious concerns about the program's safety. People have died during these purification rundowns. The extreme heat, the vitamin megadoses, and the lack of proper medical supervision have resulted in actual fatalities. Emily's lyric isn't celebratory, it's critical. It's calling out a specific practice that has harmed people. Then there's the line about practicing what you preach. This one hits different when you understand Scientology's stance on LGBTQ individuals. Scientology has a massive problem with gay people. The church's founder, L. Ron Hubbard, called homosexuality a dangerous mental illness requiring treatment. The church's official materials describe it as a perversion that needs to be fixed. But Emily Armstrong has been openly gay since 2016. She's not hiding who she is. Her identity directly contradicts the church's core teachings. That's not someone who's bought into the ideology. That's someone who's living in direct opposition to it. And then there's the new Linkin Park album. In the song Casualty, Emily sings a line that might be the most telling of all. Set me free. If you're reading between the lines, it's hard not to see this as a cry for help. A message in a bottle. Emily can't speak openly about Scientology without risking everything. But maybe she can sing about it. Now let's talk about Mike Shinoda, because his role in this is crucial. Mike has been vocal about mental health since Chester's death. He released an entire EP called Post-Traumatic, dealing with grief, loss, and emotional struggle. He's not someone who takes these issues lightly. And he's also made it very clear what he thinks about Scientology. In interviews, he's openly mocked the organization, joking about Scientologists teaching you to read using only Scientology books. He called it dark. This is not a man who would bring a committed Scientologist into Linkin Park, so why did he choose Emily? The only logical explanation is that Mike knows something the public doesn't. He knows Emily's real stance on Scientology. He knows she's not a believer. He knows she's trapped. And maybe, just maybe, he's giving her a platform to break free. Think about it. Linkin Park has always been about giving voice to the voiceless, about standing up for people who feel powerless. What if Emily's story is the next chapter in that legacy? What if this band, which helped millions of people process their pain, is now helping one of their own escape a cult? Chester Bennington's entire career was built on honesty, on ripping open his own wounds so other people felt less alone. Emily's album, Illicit Tragic, suggests she carries that same kind of pain. She sings about addiction, self-worth, and mental health struggle. She's not hiding from darkness. She's confronting it head-on. The difference is, Chester could talk about his demons openly. Emily can't. Not yet. Not without consequences that could destroy her life. But if she's singing Set Me Free on a Linkin Park album, maybe she's preparing to do exactly that. Maybe this band is about to facilitate the most high-profile departure from Scientology in years. And if that happens, it won't just be a win for Emily. It'll be a testament to what Linkin Park has always represented. Because when it comes to fighting for mental health, fighting for the truth, and fighting for people who can't fight for themselves, Linkin Park has never been afraid to go all the way. Emily Armstrong's story isn't over. In fact, it might just be beginning. And if Linkin Park stays true to their legacy, they won't just be making music. They'll be saving a life. Thanks so much for watching. If this story got you thinking, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Emily, Linkin Park, and where you think this is all heading. See you in the next one.